have to tell you, when I said I was coming here today, there was a huge discussion amongst my crew, specifically my eldest son, who's now 21 years old. And it wasn't about, what are you going to talk about, because I'm nicknamed the filibuster. It was simply, what are you going to wear? And my son said, I know what you're thinking, not that shirt, not the jeans, and definitely not the work boots. However, you always want to be you, and this is me. They tell you to dress for success, and I have to tell you, this is what I look like as success. They tell you to go after the job and wear something for the job that you want, not necessarily the job you have. But to me, the work boots, the jeans, the Ready Detroit t-shirt, and the jean shirt, this represents the job that I never knew I wanted, and the job that I'm so grateful that I worked so hard to create. I'm going to take you back about 10 years ago. Everyone recall 2007, 2008? In Detroit, those years were not great. I was hustling. I had a cleaning business. It was called Mrs. Clean and Company. It wasn't because I was a Mrs. Never was, never have been, don't know what the future holds, but Mrs. Clean sounded a little better than Miss Clean. I was hustling doing these houses because I found it a way to help pay for my early elementary education degree. And it also got me in my first house, a little bungalow in Ferndale, and I had a small son. So I was hustling cleaning houses, and all of a sudden, everywhere we looked, people were losing not only their jobs, but their houses. So you certainly couldn't afford a house cleaner if you didn't have a job, and you definitely didn't need one if you didn't have a house. So I was stuck in a position where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then a twist in my life took me to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, I packed up my Ranger pickup truck with about 95,000 miles on it, 2 dogs, 1 little 4th grader, and we moved to a place where we knew no one. Minneapolis was still booming. It was hit by the recession a little bit, but everything was still going well. Real estate, what I was interested in, was still doing very well because that was my passion. For years, I had been in all these people's homes, seeing all this go on, and I'm like, I'm not just the person scrubbing your floors. I actually know about this stuff. But it fell on deaf ears because I was simply the house cleaner. I got to Minneapolis, and I thought, you know what would be really great? If I got a real job, a salary, benefits, predictability, a whole fresh start. So I put together a resume, a brilliant resume, because I went to school and majored in English. So it had a lot of truths and some stretched out truths, but I looked great. I knew I just needed to kick that door open, right? And then my God-given talent of this, the big mouth, should do the rest of the work. I got a 3rd interview for what I thought was my dream job. It was to be on the Target corporate commercial design team, and Target is headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was sitting in my car doing the interview with what I pictured to be maybe 23, maybe 24-year-old human resources recruiter on the other end. And I'm talking, and all of a sudden she just cuts me off. And she says, you know what? You're just not a good fit. I don't think you're a good fit for Target. I just don't think you're a good fit for this team, so thank you very much, and she hangs up. And my heart stopped. I had banked everything on getting this job. Like, there wasn't an idea out there of me not having this job. What was I going to do now? And I lost it. The rain's coming down on the windshield, so anyone, walking by didn't notice this blonde losing her mind in the car. It just looked like this blur, maybe like a rabid dog or something in there going crazy. But I was just kept saying, I'm not a good fit. I'm not a good fit. And I was getting angry. And then I stopped. And I thought about what would have happened if I got that job. 1, I'd be going to work every day before my child had to go to school, which means he had to go to pre-care. And then after school, he had to go to aftercare. And then all those great things that I love about having a child in elementary school and being a mommy, the holiday parties, the field trips, if they need something, if they just need a mommy hug and you can run up to school real quick and make them all better, I wasn't gonna be able to do that anymore. And more importantly, I was gonna be sacrificing my creative soul for somebody else. I was gonna be giving all my brilliant ideas over to them, and they were gonna take credit for it. And how was I going to keep moving on my dream of being a true bona fide real estate investor working 40 plus hours a week for somebody else. So I sat up straight in my car and I thought, damn straight I'm not a good fit. I am not a good fit. I drove home, I put together the most brilliant business plan, and I put it out on Craigslist. I was hustling myself for $100 a pop, doing kitchen designs, kitchen color palettes, everything you could dream of, design in a house. I got my real estate license in Minneapolis, and nobody in Minneapolis wanted to be selling real estate because it was slow. And I was hustling every deal I could do. I was selling antique furniture that I found in my neighbor's garbage on Craigslist. And if they came by and they whispered the word shabby chic as they were loading my furniture back up into their truck, I'd be like, yeah, bring it back. That's not going home with you because you can't paint it. I was a hustler. But most importantly, I had my eye on the prize. I bought my first house in Minneapolis to flip at the time, and I went in there with my little guy right by my side, and we did it. We were really hustling with it, and I got a call from a production assistant saying, hey, could you come in and do this cameo about real estate for a TV show? And I walked in, and they showed me this pretty little house that they absolutely gutted. It was an old house, and they took out the kitchen, and they put in everything that I hate about it. And I sat there, and I said, oh my gosh, this is the most horrific thing I've ever seen. So he said, that's not what you're supposed to say. Just say something nice. And I said, I can't. Like, this is horrible. And he says, who are you? Everyone wants to be on TV. Just do what you're told. So he brought in somebody else, and it was the owner of the production company, John Kushner. And he said to me, he said, I'm sorry, what do you do? Because I didn't look the part. That one day, I didn't look like me. I had on a black skirt, a black vest, even pearls and heels. And I said, I take old houses, and I restore them. I have a child, he's always along with me, and this is what we do, it's our family business. So he said, if I show up with a camera tomorrow, this is what you're going to be doing? I said, absolutely. And they did. They showed up, they filmed me, they left. Never heard from them again. Complete crickets. So fast forward about 6 months later, I got a call. They had sold my show. I didn't even know I had a show. I was like, this is the most brilliant day ever. That was in 2010. We went to work right away. And within a few minutes' time, I was like, please ditch the I'm going to like a bad wedding hair and makeup. I don't want everyone crowding around me. I want to be part of the production team. I want to drive this train. And I did. And my crew and I went to work, and we saved some brilliant houses in Minneapolis. And it kept getting picked up season after season. And all along, I'm wearing these Detroit Rocks t-shirts, and people kept saying, what's with the Detroit stuff? Like, Detroit, why Detroit? Because all they ever saw was fires and crime and yuck and yuck. And I was like, well, I'm from there. So I had all this success going on, but it was bittersweet because I wasn't home. In May of 2013, a tweet went out saying that Detroit was selling firehouses. And I thought, this is it. I'm going home. So I wrote a brilliant proposal to the network, and I said, we're going to take the show to Detroit. I'm going to build a firehouse. I came to Detroit, I saw the firehouses. There wasn't even a fire pole in the firehouse. This didn't make sense to me. It wasn't a good fit. And I was freaking out because I had already sold the show. I already sold the idea of Detroit. So one name came to mind. Her name's Rosie. And Rosie was what we like to call a super fan. She didn't just email, she wrote letters about this house she had. So I made a quick call to her. I stopped by and saw the house, and it was my Campbell Street house. All that was left was a front facade. Everything was burnt down, and there was a burnt out house leaning on top of the house. No idea how we were gonna do this one. And here I was gonna risk my own money in this house, but we needed a house. A month later, we brought the show back to Detroit. This was the pinnacle moment where I had to decide, play it safe, stay in Minneapolis, or risk it all and come back to Detroit. And this was the old Detroit, mind you, not the polished one with the coffee shops and the trendy areas. We brought it back, we rocked that house out. And we went from this little tiny show to #1. Our Campbell Street house was seen on a global thing, and all of a sudden people were like, Detroit, that's where you have that house. We want to go see that. It was such an empowering moment because it was me making that decision that wasn't so financially secure, but if I had played it safe, we would have never gone to the successful level that we reached. I had to come back to Detroit. I had to feel and work where my home was. And most importantly, where my family was from. My grandparents that were always on the show and came and saw the set. My grandmother grew up in an orphanage just down the street on Jefferson. My grandfather, when he came out of World War II, they bought their house in Detroit. So doing all this, it took my business to another level. And it took my heart and my passion. So I say that I created this job because long ago when I was searching for that real job, there was no lady contractor who does a TV show who randomly travels the world speaking about Detroit and all of her passions and old houses. I just had to create it. And I had to mold it. And over the years, that is the one thing I've worked on. I was so driven to be a financial success that after the show got rolling, I forgot the reasons that we were doing it. And one day I realized I got all the money I could ever imagine having in my pocket. It's time to step back and put it back to where I want to be. And that's where we're at right now, putting the passion back into it and living for the joy in life rather than for the dollar. I took a hiatus for the last 2 years from the show because we all needed a break. I lost my grandparents in the past few years. I had a second baby. We lost little Tessa on our crew. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to come back. And I have a lot of friends here today that kept pushing me. And they said, when you're ready, we're going to have your back. So most recently, I was asked to come out to LA to shoot on a show. And I said, I don't want to go. And I was pushed to go again. I jumped out in front of that camera and I teared up. And I thought, my God, I'm back. I feel like me again. So I called my network executive and I said 3 words. I said, I'm coming back. And he said, great. Where are we going to film? And I said, where are we going to film? Are you being serious? Detroit. It's a good fit. It's the only fit for me. So it's taken me that long to realize that when you chase the dollar, you end up getting to a point where life is no longer joyful. And when you finally get to that point where you can say, I'm going to take back the reins, and you move forward and you find the joy in life, then it is. And that's where I am today, and that's what this job, this look, has created for me. Thank you so much for your time.